We were told that Anthony Warner was a ticking time bomb, an eccentric that nobody knew about. Everybody always speculated, but there was nothing to ever point to that would indicate that he would be violent. We were told a lie. Let's get into it. Some 16 months before the Nashville Christmas bombing, police were called to the home of Pamela Perry, the then girlfriend of Anthony Warner, who lived about 1.5 miles from his Antioch residence. They were called on behalf of attorney Raymond Throckmorton III, who was representing Miss Perry and was concerned with some of the things that she was saying to him. Now, it was of his opinion and that of the police at the time that Miss Perry was suffering from mental issues, a mental episode, as they said. When police got there, she had 2 unloaded weapons that she said belonged to Mr. Warner that were there on the front porch. She was waiting for police. She told police that she had gotten them out of the house. She no longer wanted any weapons in Tony Warner's house. She also let them know that he had the ability to make bombs. Her attorney mentioned that Mr. Warner had constantly brought up anti-military, anti-police sentiment, and that the concerns of Miss Perry needed to be taken seriously. They needed to be followed up on. In an exclusive interview with the Tennessean, Mr. Throckmorton said he told police that he felt Mr. Warner represented a clear danger to Miss Perry and that he would harm her in retaliation for her seeking out police to share her concerns. Now, Miss Perry did agree to travel by ambulance for psychological examination, and the police did make plans to follow up with Mr. Warner, which they did. They went to his home, and after receiving no answer at the door, they checked around the back of the property, could see from the fenced-in area an RV. They could see wires coming out of the RV. Now, police left the scene after they had no reason to enter the residence. They had no reason to go in the backyard. No crime had been committed. They made mention to their superiors, their findings. The superiors there at the Metro Nashville Police Department then in turn got in contact with the FBI, and also the Hazardous Unit Division of the police department was notified and given a copy of the officer's report. Now, the FBI spokesperson has come out and said this was a standard agency-to-agency briefing. They had asked the FBI if they had anything on Mr. Warner. They did not. They had not one single thing on him. In fact, Mr. Warner had only been taken into custody one time back in 1978 for marijuana possession. So he was on nobody's radar. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting. Now, remember, Mr. Throckmorton III was representing Miss Perry, the girlfriend of Anthony Warner. Police are now saying that when they reached back out to Mr. Throckmorton and were making inroads into going onto the property of Mr. Warner, they said Mr. Throckmorton told them that they had no jurisdiction and he would not allow them to search Mr. Warner's home or property. Now, why is the lawyer for his girlfriend concerned with what's going to be done to Mr. Warner? Well, Mr. Throckmorton had represented Mr. Warner before in some civil matters. But Mr. Throckmorton is now telling the Tennessean that he did not in any way tell the police not to go onto the property of Mr. Warner. That didn't happen. So now the police are saying more or less a ball was dropped. Did they follow proper procedure? They did. Did they let all the different agencies that would need to know about a potential bomb maker, about a potential threat? They did. But there was no crime that was actually committed, and there were no follow-ups about Mr. Warner. That was the last time that they were notified that we know of. Now, remember, we didn't know about this story till recently, but that we know of, there was no additional follow-up. But clearly, the police department the FBI authorities knew enough to have more investigations into Mr. Warner. I would argue that they had enough just going on the evidence that they could see with their eyes that clearly something is going on with this RV, the testimony of Mr. Warner's girlfriend, Miss Perry. More should have been done. And I truly believe that this bombing should not have taken place based on what we knew in August of 2019. So what are your thoughts? Yet another twist, yet another turn in this story. In August of 2019, Anthony Quinn Warner should have been stopped.